All right, we are green. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Get in here. We have got to talk about something that the SCOTUS just did, which I vehemently disagreed with. They just released their ghost guns ruling from the actual SCOTUS. I've got the count. I've got the actual decision. Get in here. Make sure you share this one out. Spread this out. Like button. Subscribe to the channel. Turn the notification bell on. Do all the things because the SCOTUS just released something that I am not absolutely in love with. So we're going to get into that 1 second as you guys get in here. Make sure audio and video is good. We have got a few things to discuss, and then I will jump right over once you guys are here and I know that audio and video is coming through in a good fashion. Oh, people, this is not something that I wanted to see today. To be quite candid, I'm just going to jump straight into what the news of the day is because it's a little earlier than my normal videos. So sorry for that. I just wanted to get it out. All right, the Supreme Court upholds the rules requiring background checks for ghost guns. All right, so this came out a few moments ago. I've got the decision here in a second. I've got everything linked in the description box below. I always bring the receipts. But this one, I simply don't agree with. This is crap. Exactly, I agree. This is crap. Make sure audio and video is good, guys, and then we'll continue here. So, as this you can see, this is from CNN. Before I go to the actual article, it broke a few moments ago. I think like 12 minutes ago. The Supreme Court on Wednesday upheld federal regulations on ghost guns, mail-order kits that allow people to build untraceable weapons at home, handing gun control groups a rare win at the conservative High Court. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the opinion for a 7-2 majority that included both liberal and conservative justices. Guys, 7-2? We couldn't even squeak out a 5-4? We went 7-2 against us? I mean, come on. All right. As you guys are filtering in here, make sure you send this one out, share this one out. I know it's earlier than my normal videos, but here's the opinion of the court. I've got it all right here, supremecourt.gov. Again, everything is linked. And here is the actual decision. This is the Bondi Vanderstock case, all right? As you can see, I've got everything linked up for you. Argued on October 8th. We covered it here and decided March 26th, 2025. Now, bear with me because I haven't had time to read through the entire thing. But what we're effectively talking about is a 7-2 decision against us to support the idea that background checks have to happen for pieces of metal that might eventually become a firearm. I mean, where we're at right now is, well, where's that stop? Is it 80%? Is it 20%? Is it 14%? I mean, is it a piece of metal? Is it when it's in the raw, in the ground? I mean, that mountain over there sure looks like it could be a gun soon. I mean, the stupidity. I mean, okay. So this is some of that. I'm just going to go through this as we're together. The Act defines firearm to include any weapon which will or is designed or may be readily converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive, frame, or receiver of any such weapon. So this is the entire thing. It hinged on this. May be readily converted. Okay, so readily converted. What's the number? Is it 80%? Is it 20%? Is it 10%? Can my hand be a firearm soon? Where's that line start and stop? Because again, that's the entire point. Metal in the ground. The stool is right in front of me. Can that be a gun because we can, melt it down and make it into a frame? It's just, oh my God, it's so asinine. But anyway, guys, if you're just now getting in here, they have upheld the ATF's rule. They adopted a rule interpreting the act to cover weapon parts kits that are designed or may be readily convertible. You guys know this entire thing. This entire thing is built on what can become a gun. Not what is a gun, what can become a gun. Well, now 7-2 decides that frames and receivers are now guns, even though they're not guns. I mean, just bear with me while we go through this, because we're going to find it together. Here's the held opinion. The ATF's rule is not facially inconsistent with the Gun Control Act. It's not a freaking firearm, so, God, this is my opinion. I'm not a SCOTUS, I'm not a justice. My opinion, this is a wrong ruling. But anyway. Yeah, those guys all your comments are hilarious. Do they simply not understand? Honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea what they're thinking because this is obvious. This is not. Okay, here we go, right here. A treatment of partially complete frames and receivers is also not facially invalid. Not facially invalid. Like weapon, the artifact nouns frame and receiver may describe not yet complete objects. So again, is the microphone right here in front of me a firearm because it could be melted down to become a firearm? Is it metal? Is it wood? Is it polymer? Like, at what point do we get into the level of, well, turns out this is just it's a gun. It's a gun. These sunglasses right here, man, they could be a frame and receiver. Tell you what, really got to watch out for that one. I mean, guys, it's just so asinine. And also, this whole thing of CNN gets a rare victory. CNN says the gun control groups get a rare victory. Shut the front door. It literally has been 30 years of taking our rights from us. Rarely get a victory. Anyway, let's continue. If you guys are just now getting in here, we are going through the actual decision on the Vanderstock case. There it is right here. Everything is linked. I'm going to keep on trucking. We're going through this together because, honestly, I haven't read the entire thing yet. I'm not a whole lot loving it. Here we go. Justice Gorsuch delivered the opinion of the court, which means that he was on the side of, hey, frames and receivers are guns. For decades, the Gun Control Act has regulated the sale of firearms. This case poses the question whether the Act's long-standing mandates also apply to those who make and sell a new product, weapons parts kits. Again, is the barrel, is the handgun, I mean, this is so frustrating. I'm just going to keep on running through this. Here's probably where their thought process was. Existing gun control measures Congress found allowed criminals to acquire largely untraceable guns too easily. Oh my God, they're not even guns. Like, this is the entire thing. Here we go. This is kind of the same stuff. I'm just going to keep on trucking. If you guys are factoring in, we're going through this together. These mandates serve at least two ends. The background check requirement seeks to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. The licensing, record-keeping, and serialization requirements, meanwhile, aim to assist law enforcement authorities in investigating serious crimes by permitting them to determine where, by whom, or when a firearm was manufactured and to whom it was sold or otherwise transferred. That sounds a whole lot like a registry. I'm just saying, if you know who sold it, who made it, the whole life of the thing, I'm just saying. If you're just not getting in here, guys, we just got handed a 7-2 loss at the Supreme Court for ghost guns, frames and receivers. Here we go. This is more of the same stuff. This is Gorsuch writing this, by the way. I'm just picking out things that stand out. Recent years, however, have witnessed profound changes in how guns are made and sold. When Congress adopted the Gun Control Act in 1968, quote, the milling equipment, materials needed, and designs were far too expensive for individuals to make firearms practically or reliably on their own. With the introduction of new technologies like 3D printing and reinforced polymers, there we go, that is no longer true. Today, companies are able to make and sell weapon part kits that individuals can assemble into functional firearms in their own homes, as we have been able to do from the founding of our country. Oh my goodness gracious. 7-2? All right, let's keep going here. So where's the next step? They just mentioned in the actual opinion 3D printing and reinforced polymers. So is 3D printing, can we not make our own anymore either? Like, can we not make our own firearms? Or is this only actual kits that are sold? Because if you're saying that 3D printers and reinforced polymers are a big issue and people can make them at home, so that's why we need to say that all frames and receivers have to have background checks and serial numbers. What? Okay, let's keep going. This is there's some holes in this logic, to be quite candid. Again, if you're just now factoring in, we have a Supreme Court opinion that is 7-2 against us on the Vanderstock case. I'm just kind of going through it. This is actually here in the description box below. Again, I'm just kind of going through the opinion of the court. Here we go. Let's read this. This looks interesting. The first addresses weapon parts kits directly. Recall that extends the Gun Control Act's mandates to firearms. defines as any weapon, including a starter gun, which will or is designed or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive. In its new rule, the ATF interpreted this language to embrace weapon parts kits that are designed to or may be readily completed, assembled, or restored as otherwise converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive. So again, the ATF just made up a rule, whole cloth, made up a new interpretation, a new definition, and now it's sustained and held by the Supreme Court. They just made it up. Because, if you make your own handgun at 80% or your own firearm at 80%, now all of a sudden that's manufacturing. And that's now a actual serialized firearm. It's not a firearm, but it could become one. So now, because it could become one, it is one. The lacks in logic on this are staggering. If you guys are just kind of getting in, this is about 15 minutes old. Those who make or sell kits that satisfy this test, ATF said, must comply with the Gun Control Act by securing federal licenses, putting it behind a licensing scheme, conducting background checks, keeping sales records, and marking their products with serial numbers. Flat out, that is the Vanderstock Challenge. It has now been decided that it's perfectly constitutional, that basically no more commercial 80% lowers. They all have serial numbers now. To decide whether a kit may readily be convertible into a working gun, ATF added it will consider several factors, including the time, ease, expertise, and equipment required to complete a weapon, as well as the availability of other necessary parts. Again, completely vague, completely up in the air, and they will just determine what it is. The second part, let's see what he said in the second part. Again, this is Gorsuch writing this. The second relevant aspect of the agency's new rule concerns a key building block of almost any firearm, its frame or receiver. The frame or receiver of any such weapon, covered by subsection A, is itself treated as a firearm. Effectively, that means a frame or receiver is even when sold separately, subject to the Act's requirements. So right there, a frame or receiver, which is not even a firearm, is now going to be considered a firearm because it could be made into a firearm. That's the entire argument right there. And guys, if you're just now getting in, this is the remainder and the holdover from the Biden ATF. Here, and this is the other thing right here. This is it. This is what's so frustrating. In its 2022 rule, ATF sought to expand this definition. Now, the agency said a frame or receiver subject to subsection 932 should be understood to encompass as well a partially complete, disassembled, or non-functional frame or receiver, including a frame or receiver parts kit that is designed or may be readily convertible. Again, so stupid. I'm just going to make up rules, change definitions, and completely just, do whatever I want. I swear, this is the wrong decision. And 7-2, if you guys are just now getting in here, 7-2 against us on this case. I'm just reading through this really quickly. I'm sorry if I'm being quiet for a second. You guys can jump into the chat over here. God, these things are so long-winded and wordy. I gotta turn that off. All right, here we go. They're actually mentioning polymer 80s specifically. Here we go. To appreciate why, it helps to work with an example. Take a weapon parts kit featured prominently in the record before us. Polymer 80s Buy, Build, Shoot kit. It comes with, quote, all of the necessary components to build a Glock variant semi-automatic pistol. And it is so easy to assemble that in an ATF test, an individual who had never before encountered the kit was able to produce a gun from it in 21 minutes using only common tools and instructions found in publicly available YouTube videos. 21 minutes? Okay, yeah, Never done it before, don't know how a gun works, but I made one in 21 minutes. All right, and for the super chat right here, thank you so much, Will. So much for the pro Second Amendment admin under Trump. What will Bondi do? So now here's the thing, though. Guys, this is a holdover from the Biden administration. It was already in the SCOTUS. It was already heard in the Biden administration. So technically, Trump and Bondi did not have anything to do with this as the ruling and as the decision was already going out. I'm not saying they're blameless. By any means, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is this was actually a Biden holdover that we're just now getting the decision from. So keep that in mind. This entire thing was heard before Trump was elected. All right, let's keep going. So Polymer 80's got a special call out. There's some things I can't show you because internet and YouTube. I'm just going to keep on going down as we go through this decision. As you can see, it's all linked in the description. This dropped about 15 minutes ago. Again, here we go. almighty. This is literally copy and paste from the gun controllers amicus briefs. A friend might speak of the table he just bought from IKEA, even though hours of assembly remain ahead of him. In both cases, the artifact noun fits because the intended function of the unfinished object is obvious to the speaker and listener alike. So they just compared a frame and receiver, building it into a gun, like building a table from IKEA. That is extremely bad analogy. And also, just because you say that that you bought a table, but you bought it in parts, it's a little different than an actual firearm you made for yourself. I'm just saying, guys. I'm just saying. If you're just now tuning in, this is a decision that just dropped 7-2 against us in the Vanderstock case. They have decided at the SCOTUS, in their ultimate wisdom, that frames and receivers are now firearms, even though they're not firearms. But because they can become firearms, they're not firearms. Here we go. Again, this is actually a Supreme Court justice saying this. The term weapon can work in this way too. Imagine a rifle disassembled for storage, transport, or cleaning. It may take time to render the rifle useful for combat, but in intended function is clear, and as a matter of everyday speech, that rifle is a weapon, whether disassembled or combat ready. In the same way, and for the same reason, an ordinary speaker might well describe the buy, build, shoot kit as a weapon. Yes, perhaps a half of hour of work is required before anyone can fire to shoot it, but even as sold, the kit comes with all the necessary components, and its intended function as instrument of combat is obvious. Really, the kit's name says it all: buy, build, shoot. You have to create the firearm. It is so asinine. Good Lord, that just doesn't even make sense at all. Anyway, let's keep going. If you guys are just now getting in, the Vanderstock case just came in 7-2 against us. Frames and receivers are now considered firearms, even though they're not, but because they can be, eventually at one point in time in their lives, they will be. So that's, the gun controllers took a win on this one. Thank you, Biden and ATF and everyone who had a hand in it. And SCOTUS, of course, for offering this amazingness. Oh my good Lord, this is so irritating. All right, we're just going to keep on going. This is from the opinion from Gorsuch. Thank you again, Will, for the super chat. Are you confident Bondi will cancel that rule? I genuinely do not know. I don't know. What I do know is the Supreme Court just said that it's constitutional and it satisfies, the Constitution shall not be infringed somehow. Can she cancel that rule? Yeah, she probably could cancel that rule. I honestly don't know if she's going to. Will Crump, so private gunsmithing is dead? No, private gunsmithing is not dead. It's just you can't buy a frame or receiver from a publicly available company and then make your own without having a background check. That's effectively what it is. Now, they did mention in here 3D printers and milling equipment that's available, so I don't know where that goes. They kind of left the door wide open on that one. Can't wait for the gun controllers to jump all over that. Let's see. Doge needs to audit the Supreme Court justices. Sorry, guys. I'm just kind of going through this. Whatever stands out, we're going to walk through. Again, it's all linked if you want to read the entire decision itself. It just dropped. Sorry, I'm just trying to piece through while we're on the internet live. Face that problem, joined by the dissent, try another attack. The object that weapon parts. Kids cannot be weapons. Okay, so here's the argument. We're going to go through this real quick. Here's the argument that he's basically saying why the dissent is wrong. And only 2 people dissented from this. So, faced with that problem, the plaintiffs, joined now by the dissent, try another tact. They object that weapon parts kits cannot be weapons under subsection A because they lack functional frames and receivers. This is, of course, Thomas was one of the dissenters. That conclusion rests on 2 premises. 1, that a weapon must have a fully functional frame or receiver and that no weapon parts kit includes such a part. But neither premise is sound. For one, the statute nowhere says that a weapon must have a fully functional frame or receiver, nor is it obvious how we might derive such a rule from its terms? In fact, as we have seen, subsection A reaches any weapon that may be readily convertible to live fire, and a gun that is fully operable, save the frame missing a single and easily added screw, would surely fit that description. For another, even if the statute did require a weapon to have a fully functional frame or receiver, some weapon parts kits may fit that description. Imagine a kit identical to Polymer 80s in all respects, except that it has a complete frame. Even the plaintiffs would have to admit that such a kit would count as a weapon under... No, I don't. I don't at all. If it's not a weapon and I make it into a firearm, it's a piece of inert plastic or metal. It's not a firearm until I make it into a firearm. That is so stupid. All right, let's keep on going. This kind of stuff irritates me. It's gobbledygook for the sake of gobbledygook. I'm just, again, if you guys are just now tuning in, we have a ruling coming from the SCOTUS against frames and receivers. So this is who make it. I'm just going through this as we piece it together. I can't show you that because, YouTube. If you guys are waiting for, as I'm kind of going through this, just jump in the chat right here and you guys can have your conversations as well. Looks like Thomas is one of the dissenting, and I don't know who the other one dissented yet. Give me a second. I'm going to try to jump right down to the conclusion and or the order, so to speak, because here we go. Jigs. Okay, this is what I was looking for. Okay, so this is really interesting. Hold on a second. This is why we were doing this together. I want to hit this part right here. I just saw ATF and machine guns. This is the part that I wanted to hit. Starting at the second part. So this is starting right here. Guys, this is all linked. If you want to read it, I'm going to read the second and third part here. Second, the plaintiffs and the dissent contend our interpretation of subsection B could invite a serious unintended consequence under a separate statute, the National Firearms Act. Yeah, because you can just reinterpret everything. This is the entire point. That law bans the possession of machine guns, a term Congress has defined to include the frame or receiver of any such weapon. Interpreting the GCA to reach some unfinished frames or receivers, the plaintiff's reason might lead the government to attempt a similar reading of the NFA, basically saying we're going to make whatever we want into a machine gun, right? Because it's readily convertible. That was the whole point. And if the government takes that step, the plaintiffs suggest it might next attempt to classify the receiver of an AR-15 rifle as a machine gun because it is possible to convert those receivers to function as machine gun receivers. That is exactly what they will do next. There is no they may. That is the next move that they will do. They will lean on the Vanderstock decision, which now came out 7-2 against us for frames and receivers, and they'll say, because the frames and receivers in Vanderstock were readily convertible, now AR-15s are readily convertible into machine guns, so we have to ban all AR-15s. That's exactly the argument you're going to see in very short order. I promise you. I know these gun controllers. It's very obvious that's what they're going to do. Let's continue. Briefer respondent Vanderstock, that result, the plaintiffs warned, could leave many Americans facing new and unforeseen criminal liability for possession of a machine gun simply because they own a popular and commonly available rifle. Yes, that is the whole concern. But here's why they're misplaced, guys. Here's why you shouldn't be afraid of that. This is exactly what I was looking for. The plaintiff's fears are misplaced. Guys, your fears are misplaced. Thank God. Thank God Gorsuch said that. The government represents that AR-15 receivers do not, quote, qualify as the receiver of a machine gun. Nor the government emphasizes that ATF has ever suggested otherwise. Yeah, they never suggested that frames and receivers were guns until Biden either. That's the entire freaking point. They've never done it before. Yeah, until you got Biden and Merrick Garland, and they made it a holy quest to go out against anything gun rights related, and it was a first. All of a sudden, oh my God, they had never done it before. Shocking. Shock among all shocks. Let's continue. God, that is so... that's not wise. As we have stressed... God almighty. As we have stressed, a statute's text and context are critical to determining whether and to what extent Congress used an artifact noun to reach unfinished objects. And without doubt, the NFA and the GCA are different statutes passed at different times to address different problems using different language. Our analysis of the Gun Control Act thus does not begin to suggest that the ATF possesses authority to regulate AR-15 receivers as machine guns under the NFA. Again, this is their attempt to assuage our fears. Again, they've never done it before, so they wouldn't do it again. They literally had never redefined frames and receivers as guns before either because of readily convertible. The whole point was they twisted existing language and they made law from the executive branch outside the confines of Congress by twisting and massaging definitions. Yeah, it never happened before. God, good Lord. All right, and this third one. Third, the plaintiffs criticize ATF's rule for permitting the agency to consider jigs, tools, and instructions when deciding whether an incomplete frame or receiver is close enough to the finished product to fall under subsection B. The dissent echoes the complaint, offering a photo from the record depicting various tools and jigs. But if this is a problem at all, it is one for another day. As litigated, this case does not call on us to address what weight, if any, ATF may lawfully give jigs, tools, and instructions when deciding whether a frame or receiver is present. This case requires us to answer only whether subsection reaches some incomplete frames or receivers, saying that it does not do enough to resolve the issue or dispute before us. So now the jigs and the instructions and all that, which earlier was a freedom of speech issue, is now doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, and here's the final it's so ordered opinion completion. The plaintiffs close by asking us to invoke the rule of lenity or the doctrine of constitutional avoidance to resolve in their favor any ambiguities about that code. But neither lenity nor avoidance has any role to play where text, context, and structure decide the case. And even if the ambiguities at the outer boundaries of subsections A and B emerge in future disputes involving the application of those provisions to particular products, no room for doubt exists about the answer to the questions the parties have posed to us. The GCA embraces and thus permits the ATF to regulate some weapon parts kits and unfinished frames or receivers, including those we have discussed. Because the Court of Appeals held otherwise, its judgment is reversed, and the case is remanded for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. Basically, 7-2 against us. Of course, Sotomayor is concurring, no kidding. Walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. Kavanaugh concurring. Hold on, we're going to find out the final counts, and then we're at this video. Jackson concurring, not a shock. Thomas dissenting. Thank you for the super chat, Will. So the SCOTUS will probably not uphold their own precedents in Heller and Bruin. This was a different question. That's what they're saying. So Thomas was the dissenting. Who was the other dissenting? That's what I'm looking for. We'll go into all the dissenting and everything at another time, probably later today. Come on, get me to the. Wow, Thomas was verbose on this one. Let's go. Yeah, at least he did that right. All right. Who is the other dissenting judge? Come on, someone. It's got to be Alito. All right, we're almost over. Dang, dude. Clarence Thomas was long-winded in his I'm pissed. I'm here for it. Just going to scroll through, guys. We're almost there. We're almost through. I can tell because the scroll bar is almost done. There you go. Alito was the other dissenting. So what that means, guys, in wrapping this video, so we had a 7-2 decision saying that the Vanderstock case, the frames and receivers can now be considered guns by the ATF, even though they're not complete, but they're readily convertible to be completed. You had Alito and you had Thomas dissenting. Every other person went with it. So that would be Kavanaugh, that would be Amy Coney Barrett, and that would be Roberts, along with the other three justices. And Gorsuch, and Gorsuch also went along with them. So yeah, so we have a conservative court, 6-3, and we lost 7-2. That is unbelievable. And guys, if you're just now getting in here, Supreme Court just handed us a 7-2 loss on frames and receivers. Now the Biden administration on ghost guns is now an official constitutional ruling. So at this point, Bondi can remove the rule. I don't know if she will, to be quite candid. That's another thing for another day. But this is a loss for us. This is a win for the gun controllers. I am highly vexed, and I will see you guys on the next one when we break down the dissenting opinion. I appreciate your time. Spread this one out, and I will see you on the next.